Hi, everyone. I want to take a quick minute to go through the actual process of identifying the Monroe motivated sequence in the ultimate gift video that Jennifer Kennard provided in terms of donating blood. So on the left of the screen, you'll see her transcript highlighted, and I'm going to walk through each one of the comments that I've highlighted here and show you how those fit with the rough outline that outlines the Monroe motivated sequence for our upcoming assignment. So to get started, the first one that I've highlighted is her attention getter. This is not in the sequence on our rough draft, but this is the first step of the Monroe motivated sequence, is getting attention. And what you can see in line 2 is that she asks a series of questions, and she's already done some research to find out how many people in class have ever donated blood. This is a way for her to actually get connected with the audience. So she does this to get attention as well as to reveal her topic. Then you can see in line 3 in her preview, she actually comes out with that need. What is that need and what is she going to try and do? So if you remember, if we look over here, we could say that her topic is donate blood. And her proposition, if you remember, propositions need to be a statement that is reflected in a claim of policy, which means that something should or should not be done. So in line 3, when she says, encourage you to take action to combat this need, she's asking you to donate blood in so many words. So let's take a look at the overwhelming need for blood donors. So if we were going to sum this up, we would say you should donate blood. So that takes us then to the first main component of the Monroe motivated sequence. We talk first about a need statement. In this first argument, you want to state exactly what the need is. So in this case, she's stating in line 4, the lack of participation of eligible blood donors is posing a threat. So her need statement is lack of donors. So as she presents that problem, the next statement here where we talk about evidence to warrant your claim, what evidence does she provide in the following number 4 statement in particular that shows that there are a lack of donors? She has data that talks about the amount of blood that's needed, how many organ transplants are occurring, and the need for blood, how it's ever demanding. Now, one thing that she does that's a little bit different, I want to make a comment here. So we're going to say, on warrant, she provides statistics and data to prove that there is a need in the US. So this next comment here, pointing to the audience. When we talk about pointing to the audience, the goal is to actually show why or how this is relevant to the particular audience that she's speaking. And in this case, she doesn't actually make a direct connection to her current viewer, but she does use an emotional appeal by including an illustration or an example, and of this case, of a small child who has cancer who needs a blood donation. This is an option. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. However, in lines 5, 6, and 7, she goes through building the case. So kind of showing that if you or one of your loved ones were in this situation, here's the need. This is how this relates to a particular audience. I'll come back to pointing to the audience because she does make a specific statement a little bit later. I do like in line 8, take a look at this transition. It says, now that you can see the magnitude of the problem with the lack of blood donations. So she's pretty much summed up. I've shown you the magnitude of the problem. I've pointed back to the fact that there's a lack of blood donation. Let's look at a solution. And fortunately, this can be easily solved. So the biggest part with the Monroe motivated sequence and working with the needs motivated kind of organizational pattern is once you've identified the need, the whole focus for persuasion needs to be on providing a solution that satisfies the need. So in this case, she clearly says, all you have to do is go and donate blood. So when she says a statement, once again, satisfaction of the need, the solution is to donate blood. Now, I know her idea is pretty simplistic, and some of you will have critical issues that'll be more daunting to try and clarify. However, you want to keep this type of simple rhythm. Whenever you're speaking, it's really difficult if you get uh, too wordy. So be really clear. What is the satisfaction of the need? Now, one thing that is important, and I highlight this as we go down, if you can see over here where I say explanation of how the solution works, and then evidence to prove that the solution will work, those are two separate components. So first, as you can see in lines 9 in line 10, she actually talks about the process. So, how does your solution work? So, explaining how the solution works is different than proving that it will work. And so, here she goes through the process of how to donate. She also talks about where to donate, talks about how long it will take, and she talks about when you can donate. So she gives a lot of detail in 9, 10, and 11 about how it works. Now, here's a really key point in line 12. And then in line 13, she uses an emotional appeal, but her logical appeal in line 12 talks about proving that the solution works. She actually goes through the process of explaining how blood in line 12, how that unit is used, and how it actually addresses the problem. So each donation meets the need for 3 people. So she talks about white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. She also talks about the impact. Then in line 13 of how that donation will multiply and gives the math to show what will happen as showing that the solution works. Now, another component of the solution is meeting the objection. And she has a little bit of a different order, which is fine if that works better for you. But if you look up in line 11, and I didn't highlight this, so let me take a moment here just to do that. Many of you may be afraid of the thought of a needle or the pain that could be connected with it. Whenever you're giving a one-sided argument, you want to address what you believe to be the major objection of your audience. So there might be pain, is her way of saying, okay, this is something you may be considering that I can address. So meeting the objection really means putting out there one of the major objections that you have found in your research and providing a solution or an argument against that objection. So she does that in line 11 regarding pain. You can also consider this what we call the inoculation theory, which is if you let them know kind of what the other issue is, right? What's out there that they may argue against this, and then you can refute that, that helps to build strength for your particular case. So the third major main idea or argument you're going to build is what we call visualization. And in the visualization stage, and I would say this kind of, she's got a transition in line 14 that now you know what a difference your donation can make. Let me encourage you to do that. But she talks here about pointing to the audience. So think of your own loved one, is where she starts to get into this. But this visualization, when I say positive, negative, and contrast method, what you're doing here is you're actually showing whether or not or what's going to happen when your solution is adopted. So I would say that this takes place probably in 13, but also moving into 14. So as she starts to look at kind of the positive effects of if you donate, you can expect to feel good about yourself. You can also expect that you've helped other people. So visualization, you can either show the positive effects of what's going to happen, the negative effects, or a contrast method where you show, kind of the positive of, in this case, donating, or the negative of what's going to happen if you don't. So then finally, the call to action, being very clear, not just in terms of what it is that you do. So we all know that we're going to be donating blood, but in this case, she shows them where and how and when. So in line 15, going on to 16, talks about how to make an appointment, when the van will be on campus. This is really critical. You don't want to just tell people, go buy it today, or this will solve your problem. How physically can we actually engage in this behavior? So once again, if we think about a question of policy, a claim of policy is that something should or should not be done. Make sure that you're focused on a claim of policy. This is different than, once again, looking at a claim of value. So for example, she could have looked at whether or not donating blood is right or wrong or good or bad. And getting into an evaluative statement is very different than a policy statement, which proves that something should or should not be done. Okay, I'm going to stop there and give you a chance just to process this. I'd suggest that you go on to the Go React link and look at her speech, and you can use the template yourself and try and identify this. I've got some markers that are set up. You can practice, you can make comments, but I think looking for the Monroe motivated sequence in the actual speech while you're listening is a great way to practice in order to help your peers as you prepare for your upcoming assignment.